Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slow Travel Network webinar today. My name is Maria. I'm from Travel Massive, and today I'm stepping in the shoes of John, who is going to be our moderator for today. But John is on a super amazing trip in Costa Rica, and unfortunately, we had some last minute connection issues, but he's here with us, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I'm sure we're going to do fine. So today we're going to talk about the fun side of slow travel, how content can influence people to choose slow travel a little bit more, or in general to make more mindful choices. We have amazing guests that we're going to welcome just in a few minutes. We have Lauren Gay, who is a blogger, podcaster, photographer, everything. I'm going to let her introduce herself in a little bit. And also we have Melissa Lee, founder of the Green Program. And they're doing some amazing educational programs for the future sustainability leaders. So I'm sure both of them can tell us a lot about slow travel and the content side. We are here to answer all your questions. Let us know where you're joining us from in the comments. If you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, or on the Travel Massive website, you can click on the video and you can post a comment and tell us where you're joining us from. Or if you have any questions during the whole webinar, please feel free to ask those questions and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. Also, we are very thankful for this webinar series that are powered by UnTours. UnTours Foundation is the first B Corp in the world, and they're working really hard to make slow travel a statement, a mission, a mindset for more and more people, and that's why we're doing the slow travel webinars. So without further ado, I will welcome Melissa and Lauren to the stage. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Where are you based at the moment? How early is it? Is a more accurate question, Melissa.
I think Lauren and I are almost neighbors today, but I am calling in from Vero Beach, Florida today, and it's about just after 10 a.m., so perfect timing for a webinar.
Lauren.
And I'm just on the other side of the state. I'm in Tampa, Florida, so we're on the same time zone. So it's a nice morning here.
Very good way to start your day, I suppose. um, just let us know a little bit about yourself. Very quick, short introduction, and what is your connection to slow travel, and why did you choose slow travel as a state of mind? I guess, Lauren.
Hello everyone. I'm Lauren Gay. I am a content creator, blogger for Outdoorsy Diva is my platform, and I aim to inspire Black women in particular to step out of their comfort zones through adventure travel and connecting with nature. So, as a way to connect with nature, being able to visit state parks and national parks and things like that, slow travel really does kind of go hand in hand, especially when you can be in a place for longer, you can immerse yourself in that space for longer, and just really take that time to find a way to see all the natural beauty that's around. So that's my connection to slow travel and my mission for what I'm trying to do.
Thank you, Melissa.
Lauren, that sounds amazing, and I'm excited to be here with the both of you and everybody here today, so thanks for having me. My name is Melissa Lee. I'm the founder and CEO of the Green Program. We create short-term experiential education programs that are in different places all around the world, but our core focus is focused on sustainability and our focus on sustainable development. So we actually work with universities, and our students and professionals come from about 470 universities around the world, where we get to explore different elements of some of the world's most pressing issues in sustainable development through the power of travel. Post-program, we're really focused on how do we actually activate these meaningful travel experiences and inspire, motivate, empower these future leaders to put this knowledge into the play in the workforce as well.
So you have you're basically in touch with so many students who are the future of travel. So you're connected to basically creating content to those students for these purposes as well.
Really?
So you're
Yeah.
reaching Gen Z in that way.
That's right.
How does slow travel actually influence the content that you create? Is there such a relation, or which comes first, the content or slow travel came next? Like how does that work for you, Lauren?
For me, it's definitely the travel first because I'm creating content that's just going to be based on what the experience was or where the place was. So it's always the place and the destination, the activities first. I think just being able to tell those stories and show like those opportunities where I am engaging with someone in a community, like a trip I had to South Africa. We did this amazing cooking class, Cooking with Love, in the that brain fart, the Babak region in Cape Town, which is a primarily Muslim community. So being able to show that experience after the fact, I never know like the kind of content that I'm gonna get or how it's gonna turn out until I've had the experience. But without a doubt, anytime you're being intentional about engaging with people that really are in the community, the content is going to create itself. It's going to tell that story. And so people are going to be naturally curious because it's not something that they've already seen or seeing all over TikTok. It's not just a pretty place or an Instagrammable spot. It's going to get their attention because it's already something different that they haven't seen. So for me, it's the destination and then whatever that content lends itself to be.
I agree with that too. It's the destination, the place really will inform the stories because there's no way we can go into it. I think if creators or let's say storytellers or educators in my sense are going into a place with a story already in mind, I think it takes away from the whole purpose of travel anyway, and going in with an open mind too. So travel, I think at its core for me is really around immersion. It's about meaningful connections and adding in a sense of mindfulness too. And I think that's something that's been newer to the travel industry, considering we've had this obsession in travel for just like bucket list check boxes and getting from point A to point B. So it really is amazing to have quite literally like this idea of taking the time to smell the roses, right? And like being able to do that and have those meaningful conversations while you're there, spending more time in the place that you're going to be in too. And I think my motivation for the concept of slow travel has always been this. It's exciting to me because there's a shift happening to the way people are looking at travel and also doing it more sustainably too. So it's interesting because we are also, slow travel is shifting the way we look at travel. It doesn't have to be a million of miles away from home. It could be a new neighborhood in your state that you live in that you've never explored, or a new dish that you want to try from a new cuisine. So that's exciting to me, and how that will unpack not just what travel looks like, but who gets access to travel as well.
As you mentioned, Melissa, we live in that fast-paced content kind of world at the moment. So everything is bucket list, checking the boxes. Why do you think slow travel is more fun than that type of content? Yeah, that's a loaded question, but
I am all for bucket list travel. I have my bucket list. There are things and places I want to be and go see and explore. I think a lot of people do too. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think for me personally, it's about a balance of not just, it's more about the how you're going about that bucket list, and you're able to still see and do these activities, but maybe doing it a little bit more intentionally too. But in terms of fun, I mean, you're walking away with slow travel with more richness and like fuller and deeper connections to the people. And it's more than just like reading a blog post and going to accomplish everything that one person like recommended. It's actually like taking the time to, show up at the coffee shop every few mornings and have conversations, at the coffee bar, like with local people, and learn people's stories, or even other travelers' stories. The amount of times I've actually met people from my own state or hometown in very, very, very far away places is bizarre to me. I don't know how that happens, but somehow it does. But even meeting like those people that you can stay connected with when you come back home, I think goes a long way. There's also just less stress, in my opinion, with slow travel. Like there's not this like rush and hustle and bustle of getting from one place to another, and it's really just celebrating like the off the beaten path explorations and journeys too. And then, like I said, sustainability is core to everything that we do. So it's proving that you can still do those bucket list items, but doing it more mindful and sustainably too.
And Lauren, you already mentioned a little bit about TikTok and this kind of new media that are exploding in the younger generation, especially. But have you noticed what style of content works best when you share that content related to slow travel?
You know what's been interesting? No pun intended, but like just slow, like 15-second, 10 to 15-second reel style videos of literally like me sitting there remote working from this beautiful country home in this small cute town in Britain this summer with the dog I was house sitting with coming up next to me, and it's like viral. Or a train trip, and you're just taking your time and all day, and I'm literally just sitting there taking in the views. People relate to like watching you do nothing, looking. I think it's the relaxation, and they can feel it. It's like tangible, if you will. So when I'm really showing me taking advantage of being a remote worker, which is how I even got into trying slow travel, being able to stay in these destinations longer because I do still work a 9 to 5. So showing people the way that they can take advantage of this new medium that we have now, right, where just about anybody can be a remote worker if that's what you want to do, not just digital nomads and things like that, but you can be a 9 to 5 everyday corporate worker, but do it someplace else where you can get up, just like Melissa was saying, and go to the local coffee shop, go to this sandwich shop, I did so many cute, fun things in this town, and I have met, I can't tell you how many UK residents who had A, never heard of the town I was in, and B, if they had heard of it, had no idea all the things that it had to do there. They were like, I saw your video, you did a boat cruise in Tunbridge. I've never heard of this. And I'm like, it's there, but when you have that time to just explore and get lost, it's an advantage that even people who live there, they're on their daily hustle and bustle and grind, and they miss it. They miss what's right in their own backyard. So being able to do that and show that kind of content that works just really well is really showing people how relaxed and laid back that it really is.
If I can add to that, Lauren, I love what you just said about just like allowing yourself to get lost. I think that's so important. And in just travel principle and part of slow travel too, it's like that part of that culture shock of that frustration that almost like it's our initiation to be able to explore and, understand a place a little bit more too. And I think when it comes to content, so much about like authentic storytelling is also about like capturing the process behind travel, because so much I think we see on social media, which is just the glamorous side of it too. But I personally really appreciate seeing the process of how people go through and even challenges and struggles of what people go through, because it's hard being out there, especially solo traveling too, or solo traveling as a female as well. So I find a lot of value out of those authentic storytelling too. And then some of my favorite pieces, just like historically, and maybe this doesn't fit in the influencer sphere, but Anthony Bourdain did it best with content, and he did it through food and conversation and just the people that he met. And I think culinary exploration is one of the most exciting ways to be able to explore content and get a sense of place too. And maybe I'm old school, I love the like a stunning photo with like a long caption of just explaining the emotions behind it or like what went into it as well. So, and of course all the reels are super exciting too. I love that for engagement purposes.
I can also definitely appreciate even people sharing what went wrong or what, not always the glamorous side, as you said, but like what are the struggles going to that destination, or you miss the bus or you miss the train and then you have to find a way. So
exactly, we don't know enough about like what do you do when these things happen. So I think that there's space to create more of that problem solving content too.
You're absolutely right. And I do those all the time, especially, and I tend to do those more so in like stories. So if I'm in a place and put that together, so you could really show people like oh my God, I missed this tour that I was going to do today, but I pivoted. And oh, look, I happened to be in the Tokyo Tower just in time to watch the sunset over Mount Fuji. And I would have missed that had I actually made my tour, but they see me sweating and frustrated and like, or even accessibility is another thing that you can show a little bit more, because there's nothing worse than you getting to a place and you ask someone, well, how far is this? And they tell you it's a couple of kilometers, but they fail to mention the hill that you have to climb or the 200 steps that are in that 2 kilometers. So even content like that, showing them there's hills here, there's cobblestone, there's a lot of steps, there's a lot of inclines. So people really know what they're getting into, is also really important as well.
I believe there are a lot of misconceptions about slow travel. How do you think we can create content that can debunk some of the misconceptions? Melissa, do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I think there are, I'm sure, a lot of people out there who hear the term slow travel and think it's just boring and unproductive. Yeah. Like it's just like, okay, it's slow and I want to get things done. I only have 2 weeks PTO and I need to like see all the things I need to see. So I think that's a big myth out there too. But content creators or storytellers can also showcase, just like I said before, that richness of slow travel experiences, and really how you can really be diving deeper than it's going for depth instead of breadth during that limited time too. So I think that goes into another myth, is just like slow travel is only for nomads or travel influencers actually, who can only, do this for a living and they have no other job or no other thing going on. But I think it's not so much about like the amount of time, but it's about like how you're spending the limited time that you have traveling too. And building that in, or like each activity, you can still have a busy travel like plan, but you can still spend more time in each experience. That's a version of slow travel. I think that is okay too. So there's no perfect way of going about it. I think it's more of just a mindset of not rushing through your experience there as well.
And if I could add to that, also, I think, one of the tenets with slow travel is sustainability. And sometimes I think people hear that buzzword and they associate it with you have to forego nice accommodations, or, that where you're staying, it doesn't mean that you have to be like in some rustic tent, without the nice luxury things that you like, because it's in my name, Outdoorsy Diva. I still like nice, but when you go, you choose places who are mindful about their carbon imprint. They have practices in place where they're doing things to lessen that imprint and to let you know what they're doing for sustainability and the practices that they're doing, so that you can know if you are patronizing a place that does care, that is being intentional and mindful about sustainability, that is employing the local people, that is putting money back into the local community that they're making from tourism, all those kinds of things. We can show that, yes, this is a beautiful, amazing 5-star sometimes property. Like there's a rainforest lodge we did in Ecuador, but the programs that they're doing around it were fantastic. So I'm going to highlight those in my stories. I'm not going to just tell you, oh, look at this cute room, but I'm also going to tell you, and they're doing these things that are so great for the environment, that help the local people. I think if you put a spotlight on those, then people can know that, oh, I can choose things that accommodate what I like, but I can still have a sustainable mindset too.
Are there destinations that are great for content creation related to slow travel? Like, do you choose your destinations in terms of, oh, this will be amazing content if I relate it to slow, sustainable travel, or not really?
I think anywhere honestly can lend itself to slow travel because it's what you make it and it's how you approach it. I mean, you can do slow travel. It's going to sound crazy, but in a mega city like Tokyo, because it's your approach, it's what you seek out to go and do and immerse yourself with. So for me, no, not so much. It's not top of mind like, oh, this place would be perfect for it. Except for, I mean, England was kind of a little different in the UK. I did specifically want to stay in smaller like towns and not a big city. And that was just more so the vibe that I was going for, not so much the content. Like the content is always secondary to me because if it's a great experience, I'm gonna tell a great story. So I'm never worried or thinking about the content ahead of time. I'm thinking about what's the experience that I want to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So travel is the how, not the where or the what, I think too. So no matter where you go, again, like even in your own state, that this is slow experiences, we should be saying too, of how we can really just form our mindsets and practice being present a little bit more too. I think there's, for example, similar to what Lauren's saying, when we were building our Iceland program, we said we actually want to be closer to nature than just in Reykjavik. And so we might actually just spend the last day of the program for people to get their souvenir shopping out of the way and to explore the town. But all the other days, it's just really immersing ourselves in the nature and having access that's closer to the nature, which would actually just build in more sustainable transport and like logistics around that. In Nepal, we build in like a community homestay. We are installing solar microgrid systems in Nepal and building a course around microgrid systems. But it's you can spend it in Kathmandu too, and it's the hustle and bustle. And I think that's an important part of traveling and seeing as much as you can with like the different factors of what different locations can offer, but also understanding that's not the entire story of what a place has to offer too. And you can always go back, for more and doing it differently too.
I can't wait to hear more about the green program as well. A little bit more that in a few minutes, I think. But I wanted to cover one other topic in terms of monetization and partnerships in the slow travel, sustainable travel sphere. When you plan to visit a new place, how do you approach new partners? How do you approach them beforehand? Do you approach them when you reach the destination? And what is the conversation like when you try to find new partners? Lauren?
Honestly, it's not much different than any of the other destinations or accommodations or tour programs that I work with. I think for me, most of those connections and conversations happen through networking events. Things like International Media Market, things like, ATTA's World Travel Summit, Elevate. Those conferences are really key to being able to identify destinations that have like the principles that are important to you in mind. So if you care about conservation, sustainability, and you'll find a lot of them are building in tours that have a slow travel in mind. They have much longer, slower itineraries, or they're not cramming 20 things in a day for people to do. So networking events and things like that have been kind of my go-to for probably the last 3 years, where most of my work has then come from, because I've actually met these people in person first and had those initial conversations. And so then I have my list or my journal of those contacts. And as I'm planning trips, I'm coming back to them, or in majority of the case, they're planning trips, inviting me to come to their destinations because they've already spoken to me about what interests me and how we align. So it starts with me, the in-person connection first. Now, if there's someone and I haven't made the connection, I will slide in a DM just to get the right contact, to let them know I'm going to be in this area, especially if it's something that's super unplanned. So like my Nomad summer this summer, I was literally like, oh, I haven't been to that city. Let's see. I'm going to spend 2 weeks here. And so I would reach out to the tourism boards is where I would start there to see, if they're interested in partnering, what we can do, and go from there.
And before I get to Melissa, maybe if you want to add something on this, but I have a follow-up question for Lauren. What are some of the conferences and events that you go for these networking opportunities?
Yeah, so International Media Market is a really great one that happens for the North American one. It's in January in New York City every year. Adventure Travel Trade Association has several different variations. And even though adventure is in the name, one of their tenets is definitely slow travel. That's how I learned about Untours through ATTA. And so they do Elevate are some of the smaller events. They also have the Adventure Travel World Summit. TBEX is another one that a lot of people can meet, destinations and PR firms that represent destinations. Women Travel Summit is another big one. So those are just some of the ones off the top of my head. I mean, there are a lot. There's also, I'm one of the founding members for Black Travel Alliance, and we do virtual events called Wavelength. And that's another one where content creators can log on and have networking sessions and times to meet different destinations. So those are just a few off the top of my head, but there are many of them out there.
Melissa, do you want to add something in terms of how do you find partners in the destinations?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our partners are key to every program that we have abroad, and our model is unique where we will have like a university partner in place for the education component, and all of our programs are actually accredited courses for people to get university credit or continuing education credit if they'd like to get that too. But part of this is really finding the right partners that are like-minded. And I have the privilege of being able to have the creative control around like what an itinerary or the course could look like and how we're going about these experiences too. So just from the introduction calls, we know they should know too, just from our name, the Green Program, but at our core, this is what you're signing up for if you are working with us. Like, these are just our core principles of how we like to travel, and embedding slow travel experiences too is something that's important. And I think when working with higher education sometimes, and it's completely different from the travel industry, of course, too. So there's a lot of education behind, what does the study abroad industry look like? How is it shifting? And is it shifting towards slow travel? And how do we make these experiences more accessible to people? So I think it's about finding like-minded partners there. And then the other side is like our logistics partners too. They're all locally run programs, and you're learning from the best experts in sustainability in each of the countries. And they all have a say in, what do they want to be teaching the world about, and the future leaders about their home country and sustainability. And we build that into the course too. So I think that's a lot with partnerships, is just not only utilizing it as like a vendor service, but there's so much richness in their life experiences that is part of what we want to bring out in our travel and educational experiences too. So that's been really important to us. And then I think there's just like amazing vendors out there, like organizations like Untours, that are set up ready to go for you to just sign up and have an incredible like slow travel experience, and all you have to do is show up, and the whole motto is like unpack once. So how nice is that, just to be able to get there, unpack, and just enjoy and relax with like a nice local host to support you along the way.
You touched upon the educational part as well, and I want to explore this topic a little bit in terms of us as content creators, or just creating content. How can we change people's perspectives? Like, can we motivate people to make more mindful choices? And also, is there a specific language that you use when you create your content, or does it just come naturally sharing just your experiences and people find out about those, slow travel concepts and principles. If I hope you understood my question, Lauren.
That's a good question. I think so the way that I present my content and why I think people follow me is because I'm very colloquial, right, in my speech. And so I don't try to use I don't try to use a lot of buzzwords and like super industry standard kind of language. I'm just speaking to them like how I would talk to like one of my homegirls, you know what I mean? So I'm just keeping it like 100% real about the experience. And then I always try to add like little facts, like so people's attention span, you give them bullets of these little factoids, then they tend to they can grasp that better and really absorb the information. And you have to say it more than once. So like there'll be one post that may present something about one portion of that topic, and then another post that will dive into another portion of the topic. And then we'll talk about it again in my stories. And it's like, okay, now you're getting it. Now you understand what I mean when I talk about lessening carbon footprint. And here are things to look for in places you go to that are lessening our carbon. So you kind of have to, like teachers do, and as human beings, we all learn differently. Some people are very verbal, auditory. Some people are visual. Also, having captions too is a big one. So if I'm verbally explaining something, having the caption so that people see those words across the screen. I know for me, I retain information better that way. So I'm definitely intentional about the education part. I'm also always looking for, either if I'm in the United States or wherever I am, is there some type of story that ties into Black history, not just American, but any part of the African diaspora? Can I tell that story? Like I learned so much completely accidentally about the Afro population of Ecuador, which I didn't even expect, and was like, wait, I know a lot. So if I didn't know this, I know that like your average person didn't know this. And so I want to share those things. So I'm even intentional about education of the people and what their struggles are and what they're dealing with, and things like that. So that's really my approach. And if it's not the Black history part, it's an Indigenous tie-in to those people and their story and the true history around a place that maybe we've all seen, known about. A rail trip turned into a whole history lesson about Black rail workers and how they changed the entire rail industry for all of Canada. But it was like, who knew that that's what was going to come out of that? But it resonates so well with people. And then the brands actually really appreciate it because perhaps they didn't know themselves, but they're more than willing to amplify it and then also tell those stories too. So you're not only educating like viewers and followers, but a lot of times you may also be educating your brand as well.
Melissa, do you want to add something?
Oh my gosh, Lauren mentioned so many great points, and like one of them just also like I love Lauren's focus on like quality over quantity too, and just how intentional her storytelling is as well behind this. And I guess one example that it's just top of mind now, I think we're supposed to be posting it today, but I just came back from a backpacking, like we did run an outdoor leadership trip in Patagonia, and it's a backpacking program. And along the program, this was just like a week and a half ago, and we were just backpacking. Everybody was so tired. But our guide is amazing and pointing out all the local flora and fauna, which in any other sense, you're just so focused on surviving and getting to camp. So it was really nice to be like, oh, wow, I didn't even stop and smell the roses, right? Like stop and realize that was there. And we actually were passing some trees that had these like jiao jiao mushrooms. And we were so interested in them, and we had this whole conversation around it, and we ended up learning that's like a really amazing like ingredient that they use in a lot of local like desserts and ice creams and all this kind of stuff. So there's like a whole story behind these mushrooms. So one of the students, of course, one of the people on the program said like, can we eat it? Can we bring it back to camp? And the answer was like, yeah. So let's like harvest a few. We only took what we needed. And it was just like for fun to just try something new, but it was such a highlight of the experience. Like go back after a really long day of like 10 hours of 18 miles, was it? Or like 10 hours of backpacking that day with 50 pounds on our back and just being able to like slice these little mushrooms that we got, put them on a camp stove, add some garlic, add some butter. It was delicious. And that itself was such a rich experience within itself. But at the same time, like something so simple like that created space. It's creating space to share about like how fungi really have like a vital role in actually not just nature and the environment, but like fighting and addressing the climate crisis, right? Like we know that mushrooms are sequestering carbon and encouraging like biodiversity. They just found like an Amazonian fungus that breaks down plastic. So there's like a story behind the experience itself that we can use to expand upon, and really just talk again about the educational or like the inspirational part of how this fun piece of what we did was really like a instrumental part of like something that's fundamental to maintaining the balance in the environment as well.
Before we continue to the next topic, we do have a question for Lauren from the audience. Do you think there are partnership opportunities for people with, for example, less than 2,000 followers, or people who are not yet established as bloggers, content creators? What would be your tips?
Absolutely, there are opportunities like that, because it's not always about your audience per se. You can create content for the brand to use. It's called user generated content. So UGC is a really good way for people who may not have a following yet that they think that they can be paid for. But it also depends on your audience, right? And so if you have a great niche that is important to the brand you want to work with and they want to reach this audience, then even your 2,000 followers is enough, because you're putting this in front of a niche that they may not have access to themselves, but your niche is important to them. And it's the quality of your work. It is, showing why it's valuable, showing why they should work with you. So do not shy away from forming these relationships and reaching out because of your number of followers. I absolutely had my first fam trip with like 1,500 followers, and I got it because I went to a conference. And so going in person, it's you. It's your personality, it's your mission, it's how you align that people gravitate toward. And so when you are starting out, is really, really important to get yourself in front of people so that you can have those human connections. And that's going to take you much further than just a cold call email with a media kit ever will, because you allow them to connect with you as a human being. And you also want to look for, how can you create content that's going to solve a problem? At the end of the day, this is a business, and we have to remember that when we're working with brands. So this has to be mutually beneficial for both parties. So go to their website, look at their social media, look at their marketing materials, and then look for those gaps and those opportunities of what they're not doing well or what they're missing. That's how you position yourself to say, well, I saw this and I can create this for you, and here are my rates, and look at it that way. So there's multiple ways. We won't take up too much time, but absolutely, as nano influencers, there's definitely opportunity to work with these brands. You just have to get a little creative sometimes.
Melissa, tell us a little bit more about the GREEN program and what type of students are joining you, where are you bringing the groups, and then I have a follow-up question.
Sure. So I started the GREEN program. We just celebrated our 14th year. I was a 19-year-old student who had no idea what I wanted to do, but I know a lot of friends, and I just, it was important for us to find something that had a little bit more of a deeper purpose. And I think millennial and especially Gen Zs, we are born into society with a larger weight on our shoulders in regards to just knowing more and having more access to the world's problems. And this was around the time where the Millennium Development Goals were out and by the United Nations, and it was more specifically around like poverty, but that's when we started the Green Program. And I started it, it was a travel trip to Costa Rica just over a summer break to see what was going on there. And we ended up seeing like a lot of different wind turbines and renewable energy facilities. And actually one of the first trips, what we did was we went up to a wind facility and there was a fence and the gate was locked. And we said, okay, what are we gonna do? And we actually jumped the fence, which looking back was not the greatest idea, but we jumped the fence and went to knock on the door of the facility, said, hey, like, what is this? Can we come in? We'd love to learn more. And long story longer, we essentially, this connection was made where we just said, wow, more people, as in like our friends, you know, at the time at university, like need to see this. And these are people who are 5 years nose deep in a textbook expected to build our future energy structures, our environmental scientists. Like these people are so passionate about solving the world's issues. And we said, you know, how can travel play a role in addressing what's missing in the higher education system? So we were able to put together these curriculums and essentially 8 to 10 day courses that bring people abroad. And now we work with corporations and professionals and bring them abroad to essentially educate and empower our world's future sustainability leaders through experiential education, responsible travel, and adventure too. And our goal is, you know, although our programs are short term, post program, all of our alumni get access to career support with sustainability career support. So that's something was really important to us, to helping them build the future workforce of sustainability leaders.
Your students and people who are joining your programs are basically the future of the tourism industry, but also maybe they're also influencers themselves because everyone is sharing content nowadays. What are some of the motivational factors for young people to pursue a career in sustainability?
I think a lot of our students would say like, we don't have a choice, like we need to be pushing forward now and in sustainability, and they all actively, at least our alumni and our community, every single one of them wants to play an active role in progressing a more sustainable future, because again, like this, we know that we just can't sit back and wait for it. So that's been, you know, done with a sense of urgency throughout our alumni community, and they're incredible people and working at Nat Geo, they're at Google, they're at the every United Nations, they're at every organization you can imagine in every industry too, and they're every day pushing towards a sustainable future through the workforce. And we know the private industry has a lot to do with that, so they're pushing that forward and making waves there.
I think like we're going towards the end of the webinar, but I do want to cover a few more questions. And one of the many interesting things, I think also for the audience, is how can destinations use content and working with influencers to make themselves more attractive for slow travel visitors? What would be your tips for those destinations looking for more of these mindful travelers coming into the place? Lauren?
I think, you know, as anything else, being intentional about finding those people, starting to follow, like if they really truly say they don't know, you know, how to find creators who are focused on those tenets like slow travel, sustainability, immersion. I mean, look at the hashtags. It sounds really simple, but a lot of people kind of forget to do that. So aside, like, because creators will be using those, right? If those are topics that they talk about all the time. So that's a really good place to find influencers if they just really haven't found any. Also, working with groups like Melissa's company, working with companies that are already kind of doing this work and laying this foundation, just because they're already going to be connected to other people like in their industry and in their same lane. So that's another really good place to start. But if you already have identified creators and this is something that is important to you, I think it's just having those conversations and building into the deliverables in terms of providing guidance about the type of content that you want. I just had a trip with Herzegruten, and they were very specific that they wanted to see us immersed, doing nature things, doing the adventures, enjoying the outdoors, that they wanted it to not be, to be candid. They didn't want poses. They're not looking for just bikini poses at a hot tub or on a beach. They're looking for content that's going to show and showcase the immersion and the connection and closest to nature that you get with this expedition style cruise. So I think communicating with the creators about this is what we're looking for, this is what we want to showcase, goes a long way to making sure that you're on the same page and you're going to get the content that you want. And then sharing the content, like don't just rely on the creator and their audience, but also having content that is evergreen that you can pull from and utilize again on the brand's different channels and outlets is key. So building in like campaigns that can encompass all of that so that you don't just get a right now factor is super important. And also, like, blogs are not dead. People do still read blogs. They still live there forever. It's on the internet. So if they are SEO optimized and people are searching for these topics, then they will be found. And so I think kind of remembering that it's not just social media that people consume information is also really important to the type of content. So just leaning into all of it as a strategy is going to help you meet that goal a lot better.
I also want to echo that blogs are not dead. Long form content stays there for forever, basically. So yes, I think destinations should not forget that. Melissa, do you want to add some tips on that topic?
I would just say, I think slow travel right now is estimated to be growing compoundedly like 10% each year. So there is a big demand and drive for slow travel, and brands, if they don't already know that, they should know that. And I think that we're going to be seeing more of that storytelling coming out, which is so exciting and so refreshing. And to Lauren's case, content creators have so much power in their way of telling the story. And I really encourage more storytellers to hold on to that truth, like that essence in what you're doing and the raw experiences that you're having in that storytelling too.
I don't see any other questions from the audience, but if anybody has one final one, please feel free to share that. And I do want to give, a final wrap-up question to Melissa and Lauren, just to close this webinar and this topic. What would be your advice for aspiring content creator, influencers that want to get more into the slow travel topic? Lauren?
So my advice would just be, lean into it. Again, for me, getting into this slow travel was really newer for me this year. But if you have flexibility, with your lifestyle and with your work and your job, do it. Like literally just pick some places that have interested you, that you want to dive deeper into. A great place, like Melissa mentioned, even in your home state, like just start to do it. If you grew up in Texas, but you've never been to this small town, plan you a little weekend getaway and go and explore it. And so creating that content already on your own that's not necessarily branded or sponsored is still very important. And then you have a portfolio and a body of work that you can present to a brand that you may want to work with to show these are the stories I've told. This is the quality of my content. These are the things that I like to highlight that interest me. And here's how we align. So you have to start really building in like this repertoire of that type of content and that type of travel and telling those types of stories, and I say it's new to me when I staying in a destination longer is new to me, but the immersion part is not. So I've always sought out having a deeper, meaningful thing. Like I may go to do this bucket list thing, but I want to talk to somebody local. I want to go eat in a local place. I want to know what the locals are doing and how these things are impacting them. I'm always asking people their background stories. And so just being really intentional about how you're telling your stories, getting that content out there, and then attending these in-person events that are put on by, these great organizations, especially the things Travel Massive does, is super, super important to network and make those connections.
Melissa?
Yeah, those are fantastic. And I would add just, also just authentically being yourself. If something shocks you, talk about it and like unpack it, and I'm sure if you experience something, other people might have shared that similar experience. And I think a beautiful part about like content creation is that you help a lot of people not feel alone in a lot of the thoughts or like conversations that you might be thinking or experiencing, especially with like new types of travel experiences, or the idea of like feeling lost when you come back after a really long trip, right? Like, do we talk about things like this? Like, how do we, like, just being authentically yourself and documenting the process, not just the destination. And then one thing I've been learning too is like, part of that is also not getting obsessed with the metrics. And I think it's important that like, but like how much, we hear all these things about how the algorithms are changing and we need to post like 1 million pieces a day just to like stay afloat for people to see any piece. So I think don't let that dictate your entire content strategy, and really just help you find your voice first before just posting a bunch of junk, essentially. And then finally, I would say, we all, no matter what we do, just have to hold on to our why. And it is really easy in the world of social media to get lost and just becoming obsessed and having it consume so much of what we do. And it floods into personal lives too and work lives too. So I think reminding ourselves like why we're doing this and making sure that message is pushed through in every piece of content that you do is important as well.
And then just one quick thing to what Melissa was saying about getting lost in it. Don't forget to enjoy the travel. Like, don't get so caught up in getting the content that you don't enjoy the moment. Seeing the Moraine Lake in Banff Lake was something I had dreamed of doing. I took that moment to like go cry and have gratitude and meditate. Like, I got all my videos and my content first, but then went to sit and just have your moment. So that's so important. Like, don't get so caught up in the content part that you don't enjoy like the moment, and just be present in what you're experiencing and what you're witnessing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for all of your knowledge and experience that you shared with us. I'm sure that we motivated a lot of people that are watching us and are going to watch this webinar. Thank you all for joining as well from all over the world. But also I would love to add that the Slow Travel Network that we are creating with UnTours and Travel Massive basically is also one of the resources that people can use, one of the networks that people can join just to keep that conversation going, just to combine efforts into the multiplying the story of slow travel and the meaning behind it. So yes, everyone, you can join the Slow Travel Network. You can follow other influencers as well, and you can connect with Melissa and Lauren on Travel Massive or on their respective social medias too. Thank you once again, Melissa, Lauren. It was really nice to talk to you, and yes, hopefully see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.